Hello, Huntley Hotspurs. Alright, it's time for my final updated post transfer window and post 3 match days Premier League table. Alright, so let's start off with the very bottom of the league and work our way up. So in 20th spot, I have Burnley. I just think with their squad and they have the least impressive squad on paper, and they've gotten a few results here and there. I think they will get a few results here and there, and I don't think they're going to be as low as what the points tally was for Southampton last season. I can see them getting 20 plus points, at least, but I still think that's going to put them 20th. But I think there's going to be less of a gap between 20th and 18th, 20th and 17th than what there was this last season. I mean, this last season that went by, you had Southampton with 12 points and then 17th with 38. I don't think it's going to be like that. Burnley, 20th. 19th, you know what? I've been a bit bold here. I've gone with Wolves. They're not looking good. First 2 game weeks haven't got a single point on the board, sitting rock bottom. I don't think they're going to finish rock bottom. And there is even a chance they do squeak by, just like they do most of the time, 16th, 15th, whatever, something like that. But unless they dip into the market in January, I don't really know where their wins really come from. They've lost Cunha, they've lost Aït-Nouri. They started to have some poor from the end of last season. It seems to be carrying into the season. And I don't know. And these 3 promoted teams that have come up don't look nearly as bad as what last year's 3 promoted teams that went up looked. So I think there's a good chance 1 or even 2 of the promoted teams can survive. I think it is a long shot to say that all 3 are going to survive, but I could definitely see 1 or even 2 surviving. Having said that, I have put a second newly promoted team to go down. 18th, I've got Leeds. I think your Leeds are going to get good. I think they're going to have decent home form. I think they're going to pick up some points there. I think away from home, they're going to struggle. They have picked up. They did get a good win over Everton away from home. Sorry, at home they beat Everton, which is good. Got battered by Arsenal, which didn't look good. But then yet again got a 0-0 draw at home with Newcastle, which is a pretty solid result, if I do say so myself. As a Spurs fan, I would be happy with a draw at home to Newcastle, to be honest. But I think they did get some exciting additions. I do think their firepower up front's a little bit lacking. Like Calvert-Lewin, can he even stay fit? We're not sure. Doesn't look like it based on recent history. So I think 18th is pretty fair. 17th, I had them originally being relegated, but somehow it hasn't quite been as bad as I might thought it would have been in the first couple of weeks. And I've got Brentford to stay up. Look, Keith Andrews, I think, might actually do an okay job. I think they might be good enough to just based the quality of some of their players and the vibe around the club, they might just be good enough to just stay up. I don't think they're going to be punching mid-table like they were with Thomas Frank, or even the higher mid-table. But I think, 17th, I can. A lot of people still have them to be relegated, but not like 20th, like 18th maybe. I could see maybe Leeds and Brentford swapping places here, but I think Brentford might just have enough actually in the tank. Schade still there scoring goals. You got Thiago is actually staying fit for now and scoring goals. Got Damsgaard there still as the creative spark. And, and Keith Andrews keeps the set piece thing going because he was the set piece coach. He keeps them being a good set piece team. Managed to get a win against Aston Villa. So, yeah, I think if they can keep getting results sort of like that and just scattergun, getting things here and there, I do think they have the quality then to stay up. So, I'm now upgrading Brentford to 17th. 16th, I originally also had this club going down, but now I think I've changed my mind. Sunderland. They made such exciting business. I think outside the big 6, they had the most exciting transfer window by far. Gotten some good quality. They got some players there that could be, mid-table, upper mid-table, sometimes even top 6 type signings. Brian Brobby from Ajax is a player that teams like Arsenal, Tottenham, West Ham example have looked at. Sunderland got him now. Granit Xhaka used to be at Arsenal, was at Invincibles Leverkusen. Now he's at Sunderland. Yeah, they're looking really good. Had an exciting window as well. I think they're going to have enough. I think they're going to stay up. I've got them in 16th. 15th, I've got West Ham. Look, a lot of people are still kind of predicting West Ham. Could they go down? I don't see it, guys. That 3-0 win against Forest changes things a bit. And they're playing Tottenham this weekend. If they can get, a draw or win out of that match, then things are changing for West Ham. I think they're moving away from relegation then. They're moving away from being a team that looks like a relegation fodder. And I think, 14th last season, 15th this season, it's really much treading water then for Potter, but I don't think they're going to go down. They've got players like Bowen, they kept Paqueta, that Mateus Fernandes, Southampton's early signs look good, got him one of the best players Southampton last season in a terrible Southampton side, but he himself looks decent. That Hadji Diouf guy on the left back position, he's looking pretty solid as well. Yeah, their strikers are a bit concerning. Füllkrug and Wilson, a bit old, injury prone, both in their 30s. It's a bit dodgy. But you know what? Goals from guys like Bowen, Paqueta, guys like Souček always pop up. I think, 15th for them. 14th, I think I've dropped them a little bit where I put them. I think originally I thought they would finish about, 11th or so. But I've got Nottingham Forest because I think Ange is going to make them more open defensively. But at the same time, I think because of their squad depth, I don't think they can go as low down as 17th, what Tottenham did. But I can see them dropping off. But I think 14th would be pretty fair, especially if Ange is going to put all his baskets in the Europa League. Then I think 14th would be a pretty solid finish for them if he puts all the eggs in the Europa League basket. Now, look, if Ange doesn't win the Europa League and they finish 14th at the end of the season, does he keep his job with Marinakis? I don't think so. If he wins Europa League and gets 14th, I think he does keep his job with Marin. I think it's really that simple. It comes down to, does he win the Europa League? That's basically what it comes down to with Ange. They could finish 12th and not win the Europa League, and I think Marinakis would get rid of him. So it really just does depend on what happens in the Europa League. I personally don't think Forest are going to win the Europa League, and I think they will finish certainly in the lower half of the table. And then I really do think maybe it could be, we don't know how Marinakis would react to that. 13th, I've gone for Crystal Palace. One of the reasons why I'm putting Crystal Palace just one place lower than last year, 12th is like their spiritual home. A lot of people putting them slightly higher this season, maybe like 9th, 10th, 11th. But you know what? They have to play in the Conference League. And I think they're going to go deep in the Conference League. I think they're going to really try. They can really have a good go. The Conference League is a lot easier to win than probably even the Europa League. I think they can do it with their current squad. Mateta, Sarr, guy Jeremy Pino, Gay, he's still there, Adam Wharton, Dean Henderson. I think they could quite easily, not as easily as Chelsea, mind you, but they could fairly easily win the Conference League. And I think that's going to take some strain on them. Also, Glasner, I don't think he's too happy at the moment. I'm not sure if he might leave. If Gay leaves in January window, which he could well do with Liverpool still sniffing around and them not wanting to lose Gay on a free at the end of next season, I think he could walk. He could decide, I've had enough. I'm not really feeling totally backed here. You're selling my players. And yeah, he could walk. He could have a team like Man United also sniffing down his neck, West Ham, etc., sniffing down his neck if things don't go their way with their current managers. Bournemouth, if Iraola leaves, would it go Palace to Bournemouth? That's a bit of a slightly lateral move, so very like sideways move, maybe even slightly backward move. So I don't see that, but yeah. 12th, I've got Bournemouth. Finished 12th 2 seasons ago, finished 9th last season. I think it's going to be a bit of a regression back to maybe like a solid mid-table 12th. They lost Huijsen, lost Kerkez, they lost Zabani, they lost Kepa, they lost Quatara to Brentford. Yeah, but I think, players like Evan Nielsen always popping up with goals. Semenyo looks absolutely unreal. I think they're really going to struggle to keep him next summer window, but I think for now he's probably safe for this year because they did time down to a new contract. But teams like Liverpool that don't mind overspending, they could easily chuck a 90 mil something ridiculous on Semenyo next season, shatter their record of what Bournemouth receive for a player, because their current record of the sale is still Dominic Solanke to Tottenham for 65 million. But yeah, also Iraola, if he gets poached by, let's say, a Man United halfway through the season or so, or in a couple of weeks or months' time, then I do think they especially drop off a little bit. So I think 12 is a fairly safe bet for Bournemouth at this stage. 11th, I've got Fulham. So my Marco Silva just looks solid, and they just look like a decent mid-table team. They really just do. They're not going to be getting to a relegation. I think I originally had them about 14th or so. They don't look like that. They look more like I think them and Forest I'm kind of swapping around. Fulham, like they've got some good players there. Got some guys that still score goals. Rodrigo Muniz. That Josh King kid looks pretty okay. Raul Jimenez always pops up with some goals. Defensively, they're pretty solid as well. Marco Silva's a decent manager. Yeah, and I think also I'm not sure if Marco Silva would be one of the most likely guys to be poached by like a Man United, West Ham, etc. I think guys like Iraola and Glasner are going to be higher up that list, so he could well see out the season there at Fulham. So I think 11th is pretty decent for them. 10th, I've got Everton. I think Everton can really have a decent campaign. I think they can really be a solid mid-table team. I really don't see them getting dragged into relegation fights. I don't see them dragging themselves to, 15 to 17 on this list. Certainly not into relegation. But even, 15 to 17, I don't even see that. I see, worst case, I can see maybe 13th or 14th for Everton. But I think they really need to push a bit higher. I think they can get 10th. Some people are putting them up in, 7th or whatever. I think that's a bit over-optimistic for this season. But I think they can build from 13th last season and get 10th this season. Got a really attractive front line. From having one of the oldest and most boring front lines, they're getting to one of the younger and exciting forward lines. They've got Tiano Barry coming in. They've got Jack Grealish, who started like a house on fire. They've got basically the regen Jack Grealish waiting as well in Tyler Dibbling. Both socks down, very maverick type players. Yeah, and I think Moyes just a better manager, slightly more exciting, but not exciting, but slightly more anyway than Sean Dyche. And yeah, I think solid mid-table is okay for them. 9th, I've got Villa. Originally, I had them to be about 7th, but then really not filling me with much confidence at all. And I think I could even put them in the lower half, but something in me just says, Villa, they're not going to let themselves finish lower half of the table. They're going to find some form. They're going to get some points on the board. But yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a step backwards for Unai Emery. They're looking at a bit of a lack of creativity, a bit of a lack of like final touch, football, goals. Watkins getting a bit older. They've got that guy Gisan now to try and, fill in that role of Watkins. But I think he's also just going to play alongside Watkins maybe in that left-sided role a lot of the time. And yeah, Gisan, we don't know how he is. He was very good at Nice. Tottenham were one of the teams heavily invested in him in the last couple of windows, but he ended up now going to Villa. Let's see how he does. 8th, I've got Man United. Now, if Amorim stays at Man United the whole season, can I really see them finishing 8th? No. I agree with most content creators are putting them around mid-table now, based off if Amorim stays. But if I'm honest with you, I'm kind of making these predictions for a little bit of like predictions onto where I think managers will go or how things are going to go in the season, and I'm really not convinced that Amorim's going to last the whole season. And I think if he gets him to about 12th, 11th or so with him, if a guy comes in like Glasner, Iraola or whatever, he's going to start pushing them a little bit up. I don't think that guy would push them up from like a 12th to like a 6th or a 5th, but I think he can get them up to around a 8th. And yeah, I think that would actually be a decent campaign, given how they've started and how their vibe around the club is. To finish 8th, I think they would probably take it right now. And 8th could even get you get a European spot. If the top 5 qualify for Champions League, the FA Cup winner is not someone outside of the top 7. Top 5 could then get Champions League, 6th, 7th get you Europa, and 8th could get you conference. And I think after a season of no European football, and Man United, let's be honest, they would take Conference League because they can absolutely walk the Conference League, just like Chelsea did. They really could walk it, especially if they have a manager that's not Amorim. They could absolutely walk it. If they have an Iraola or Glasner with Conference League with Man United, man, they're going to just absolutely cakewalk it with their current attackers. 7th, I've got Brighton. I've moved them up a little bit. You know what? They're just a solid unit. Hursler looks decent. I don't think he's going to get caught out like Ange did, even though he plays a fairly similar system to an Ange. He's a bit younger. I think he will be a bit more adaptable, less set in his ways. He's got some good players there. And they don't have to worry about European football this season. They can just play in the league. And results against like a Man City just show you they can get some results. They can get some good goes. They always seem decent when they play most teams. So yeah, I've got them 7th. 6th, I've moved them up a little bit. I had them closer to, upper mid-table. Like, I think 9th was where I most recently had them. But then, since then, we signed guys like Xavi Simons, Ronald Colomwani, and I look at the overall window, we got some 4 players who can instantly make an impact. You've got Kudus, Palhinha, Simons, Colomwani. All 4 of them, if they hit the ground running, can make an impact in the first team immediately. Whether all of them will or not so sure, but they really could. Early signs from Kudus looked alright. Palhinha, early signs look alright. Simons, we haven't seen yet. Colomwani, we haven't seen yet. Tell is struggling a bit, I'm not going to lie. I really rate him, but he is struggling. Takai, we haven't seen yet. Danso, we know, is a solid rotation. Not starting, but rotation centre-back. And Dragoshin, I think he will suit this Frank defence much more than he did at Ange defence. So we're not going to do the high line. So I think we can with the calibers and the signs you made. If they all play to their potential, and if Frank can get the most out of them, I could see us getting a top 6 finish. I really couldn't see that about 2 months ago. I really couldn't see a top 6 finish, but now I could. I would accept 6th, 7th. I would accept Europa League with this squad. I think that's where you should be aiming with this squad. Help, most people putting us around the 5th mark, which could even get a Champions League. I don't quite think we're there yet. But it depends on the next team we're going to discuss, and that's number 5, Newcastle. I think I'm still being very optimistic with Newcastle given their start to the season. But also I don't think we can read too much into this early start of the season. There's been such a bad vibe around Newcastle up until the end of this transfer window because it was always just about Alexander Isak kicking up a fuss. They don't know if they have strikers. They didn't have strikers. They were using Will Asula, who's still way too young to be the starting striker for an big up-and-coming club like Newcastle. They, rightfully so, went and dipped into the market and spent the Isak money on 2 different strikers. Because I do agree, if you're losing a juggernaut like an Isak, or like a Kane example, you need to get multiple strikers to try and get that same number of goals and to fill that role. Spurs now, we lost Kane. We have 3 guys to try and replace Kane. We've got Colomwani, Solanke, and Richarlison. And I think that's kind of about right. There isn't really one guy that replaces one guy in that situation. There's no real like for like. So Newcastle's attempt at that is to be Voltemade and Wissa, the WW. Hopefully it's more like WWE, so that they can actually score and just have smash downs, because they're really struggling in the goal department. Apparently Wissa has got a bit of an ankle issue. Ankle issue. Yeah, Wissa basically never injured for Brentford. Now he comes to Newcastle and he's got some ankle issues. Yeah, Solanke has entered the chat. That's all I can say from Bournemouth to Tottenham. Suddenly a guy never gets injured. Now suddenly as he arrives he's getting a little bit of niggles. Maybe they overplayed at the previous clubs. Probably. But I think they're going to get goals. Vista's a proven Prem goal scorer. He's one of the most underrated players in the league. He will score them goals. Voltemade, we really don't know. Lots of question marks over him. They spent, what was it? I think 80 million on Voltemade. That's a ridiculous overpay, guys. 80 to 85 million pounds on Voltemade. That's a ridiculous overpay for him. I think he was worth about 40 to 50 million max. But anyway, they needed it. It was desperation. They got him. He's tall. He's 198 centimeters. He's 6'6". That is massive. That is a huge striker. I think that's probably. I think Beto is the only striker in the league who's taller than Voltemade. Those are 2 giants, Voltemade and Beto. But let's see how he does. But I think they can still push a lot higher now that the Isak cloud is gone. 4th, I've got Man City. Yeah, I think this is the same actually as what I said preseason. They just don't. Their window wasn't super convincing. I think maybe of the big six clubs, I'm actually going to say right now, I think they had the worst window of the big six. In terms of like the excitement and like the volume, I think they had the worst. Man City, and they're looking like they're struggling a bit under Pep, man. They're struggling a bit under Pep. I think he's gonna pull them right like he did last season though. But I just think the next year I'm going to discuss are looking better, and I think the vibe is better. Number 3, got Chelsea. Look, they're looking great. João Pedro looks amazing. Delap is injured, but I think he's going to come back, and he looks pretty solid. I rate Delap very highly. Yeah. In fact, I rate him so highly that I kind of hope he flops a bit or doesn't get game time at Chelsea so he can try and move to another big club in the near future. And I really would want Spurs to go for Liam Delap because I think Delap is basically Harry Kane, just 10 years younger. I really do think he is just Harry Kane, 10 years younger. But anyway, so I really don't like that he's a Chelsea, especially he might get lost in that. The only hope is that he could get lost in that, in that cog. He could just be a cog in a machine and get lost in everything they have going on there. But anyway, I don't think that will happen. I think he'll be okay. I think they'll try and keep him as much as possible. He's an England international. He's young. He's got potential. Why would they really want to get rid of him, even if he's not forcing his way into the team? They look good though. They're scoring goals. Their centre backs situation is not great, but better than the likes of maybe a Liverpool. And yeah, I think third is reasonable. Now the next two, as I said in my previous video, at the very end I hinted at this, but it's still true. These are the best two teams. Arsenal and Liverpool, they are the best two teams in the Premier League. It looks like it. They're the best two windows in the Premier League, and I think they got the best two squads on paper and skill set on paper of the Premier League teams. But number 2, I've got Arsenal. I'm sticking with Liverpool first. I think Liverpool do still look like they can win. They've won all their games so far, and they, even when they don't play at the absolute best, they still find a way to win. And now they've added Isak to that Arsenal. Sorry, Arsenal fans, but yeah, they've added Isak to their Arsenal, as it would be, and he's going to be good. He's a proven goal scorer. Some people are just desperately hoping he flops, but come on, guys, is Isak going to flop at Liverpool when he succeeded at Newcastle? Bigger club, better players servicing him. He really wanted the move, so he's got that excitement and desire to perform for them. He's not going to flop, guys. What would be a flop? Probably getting, I would say, for the amount they paid for him, if he gets less than 25 league goals, I'd say it's a flop. But I don't really see him getting less than 25 league goals. I think he can get 25 to 30 league goals easy with this Liverpool team. And yeah, I don't think there's much more to say about that. I think Arsenal, second best team, second in the league. Liverpool, best team in the league right now, so they're going to be first. But that's it, guys. That's my final updated Premier League table post the window, post the first couple of game weeks. And now nothing can change. Now we just sit back, put our seatbelts on, and see what happens. And enjoy the ride. Well, hopefully, as Spurs fans this time also, we can actually enjoy the ride and not just cry into our hands almost every game week. But yeah, as always, come on, you Spurs.